First up, Houndmaster Shah. Hunter Legendary, 4 mana 3/6, your other minions have Rush. Worse than Tundra Rhino, pass. Okay, I'm kidding. This card has control balance stats with a flexibility boosting effect, which makes this card a tool specifically for a control deck. Hunter has tools, such as their zombies, that can become quite powerful with Rush, and this card provides more stable means of giving those control resources. That being said, Rush is not an overly remarkable ability, about on par with Taunt, so giving other minions this isn't hugely powerful. So this card is slightly above average in terms of power, which for a class legendary is basically to be expected. Still, good to see Hunter getting more control tools. Secondly, Rotten Applebomb, neutral common, 5 mana 4/5 taunts, Deathrattle, restore 4 health to your hero. Simple defensive tool with healing and taunt, compare and contrast with Sludge Belcher. Higher attack, slightly weaker Deathrattle, but a distinctly different one. Of course, it being a Taunt Deathrattle minion gives it weaknesses in the form of silence and sap effects, but in general, solid card, and might even work for a mid-range or control deck that needs healing. Like with Anti-Keelbot, if a deck needs defensive tools, this is a decent option. Thirdly, Witchwood Apple, Druid Common, 2 mana spell, add 3 2/2 Treants to your hand. The Treants are notably 2 mana, which makes this an interesting card. If this card were add a Force of Nature to your hand, it would be seemingly the same effect, except not. The flexibility of being able to play the card separately is notable, giving a flexibility boost to the effect. However, this boost in flexibility does not even out the power loss, since 8 mana is spent for 6/6 in stats. So this card is distinctly below average, and would need synergies like with Mountain Giants to be considered worth it. Next up, Whispering Woods, Druid Epic. 4 mana spell, summon a 1/1 Wisp for each card in your hand. There's that synergy I was just talking about. For this card to be worth it, you need to summon at least 5 Wisps, which isn't feasible. However, it is worth noting another element of inflexibility, minions on the field. Summoning many 1/1 minions can limit how many other minions can be placed on the field, meaning cards like your Treants will become even harder to play. Forbidden Ritual avoided this by making the cost flexible, while Mountain Giant is only 1 minion. This card is the worst of both worlds in that regard, with other minions on your field preventing you from summoning its full power, much like Onyxia. However, Druid has many tools that benefit from having lots of minions, so this card may be decent if employed with the right synergies. Unfortunately, Blizzard printing a collection of below average cards that synergize hasn't worked well in the past, so I remain skeptical of how well it will work going forward. Next, Rebuke. Paladin Common, 2 mana spell, enemy spells cost 5 more next turn. This card is quite similar to Loatheb, except with lower cost and without a 5/5 body. While Loatheb's worst case is still a 5 mana 5/5, this card's worst case is a 2 mana 0/0. This terrible worst case condition actually makes it a very poor card for an aggro or a tempo deck, since having a dead card in hand is crippling to an aggro or tempo strategy. Even a control deck would only be able to use this card against other control decks. With all that in mind, I'm going to make a prediction. This card might someday see decent play in competitive, but on ladder and in arena it will be lacking. Its clunkiness both in and against aggro decks makes it ill-suited for most of Hearthstone. Next, Vivid Nightmare. Priest Epic, 3 mana spell, choose a friendly minion, summon a copy of it with 1 health remaining. A weird card, to be frank. Assuming a normal minion with no special effects, this card basically summons a Magma Rager with variable attack. That's very rarely going to be worth it, so the only use for this card is with synergies. Velen, Lyra, you name it. However, the weakness of that is this card's lack of flexibility. You need the friendly minion, you need the card, and you need enough other cards to help make sure that both minions don't die. With that in mind, this card can be used for one thing: game-ending combos. If a particular combination requires more than 2 of a minion, a la Exodia Mage, this card can provide that in a semi-reliable way. Leroy would be a decent target for this card, for example. However, in any other case, this card is too weak to be a reasonable option. Up next, Glenda Crowskin, Warlock Legendary, 6 mana 3/7, minions in your hand have Echo. 6 mana 3/7 is actually not terrible, but who cares? The effect is the important part here, and that effect is quite scary. 0 and 1 mana minions with Echo can be quite powerful. Looking at you, Sea Giant. While Zoolock typically can't make room for combination effects, the potential for a turn 6 play 6 Sea Giants is horrifying to consider. That's like playing wild. While that's clearly an edge case, you could also consider a turn 10 Glinda followed by 4 Void Callers, then pray that your opponent can't punch through and kill your witch. To simplify, this card gives flexibility and power to any low cost card. The lower the cost, the higher the power. This natural synergy is terrifying and worth keeping an eye on. Every 1-mana minion now has a new ally to consider in Warlock, which can make the power output staggering. Now we have Nightmare Amalgam. Neutral Epic, 3-mana 3/4 all minion. That's right, every tribe. Being a part of every tribe is actually more of a weakness than a strength. This card can die to both Galactic Crawler and Hungry Crab, for example. So where is it good? The main place that this card would be useful is in a deck using 2 or more tribes, like in a Curator deck. In a deck like this card can synergize with any tribe synergy cards. Currently very few decks like that exist, but this may be a valuable card in a Pirate Murloc Dragon Beast deck that comes around in Wild someday. With 2 cards left, we have Witch's Apprentice, Shaman Common, 1-mana 0/1 Taunt, Battlecry, add a random Shaman spell to your hand. This card is a touch worse than Babbling Book. If you compare contrast Target Dummy and Wisp, it's clear that Taunt isn't quite worth not having any attack. However, this simply means that this card is better equipped for a control circumstance. While this card is objectively worse than Babbling Book, practically, there are times where it might be more useful. Those circumstances are more common if this card is put into a control Shaman deck, so if this card finds a home, that will be where it is. Finally, we have Hagatha the Witch, Shaman Legendary, 8-mana hero card, Battlecry, deal 3 damage to all minions. Hero power, Bewitch. Passive, after you play a minion, add a random Shaman spell to your hand. While a touch underwhelming, it's important to recognize the power that this card is able to wield. The Battlecry stops aggressive opponents in their tracks, and can turn a game around, leaving just you with your buffed hero power. Its effect is identical to the Witch's Apprentice and similar to the Babbling Book, except now all minions have it. Like all of these buffed hero powers, it is more powerful the more it is used, so the question becomes how often it can be used. The answer? A lot. Shaman is losing a lot of its best pieces, so the class could go in any direction. But consider Elemental Shaman with Firefly and other elementals. Consider the new Echo minions. Consider Marabi if it wasn't terrible. All of these effects assist Hagatha in getting more use, and in the end you get an extra spell for every minion left in your deck that you play. That is valuable for a control style deck, providing double the value for each of your minions in your deck. In the end, Hagatha synergizes with the simple idea of having minions. It just synergizes with some minions more than others.